I was 17 when I started working at Crossroads Diner. It sat on Highway 81 in the middle of nowhere upstate. My shift was 5 to midnight on weekends, which meant I was usually alone up front while Hector worked in the kitchen. It was a Thursday in November when the man walked in around 9:30, right after the dinner rush had died down. He was thin, maybe mid-40s, and wore khakis and a plain blue sweater. His hair was neatly combed. He looked like a substitute teacher or an accountant at best. He settled in booth 7, the last one near the bathrooms, and ordered 2 bottles of water. I brought it to him with silverware wrapped in a paper napkin. He thanked me and pulled out a small notebook with graph paper inside. He started writing numbers in neat columns. By then, I'd encountered plenty of weirdos, so I simply went back to work but kept an eye on him. An hour passed, but instead of ordering food, he sat there, writing and occasionally sipping his water. Every few minutes, he'd glance up at me and would immediately look away the moment our eyes met. Around 10:30, I went over and asked if he wanted to order anything. He looked up with a small smile and said he was fine. He took a pause before he added my name. I froze. My name tag had fallen off 2 days ago, and I hadn't gotten a replacement yet, and didn't remember introducing myself. He must have seen the confusion on my face because he gestured toward the schedule board near the kitchen, said he noticed it earlier. That made sense. The board listed everyone's shifts with their first names. I relaxed a little and told him to let me know if he needed anything. He nodded and went back to his notebook. By 11:30, I started cleaning up for closing. The man was still there, scribbling stuff. I wiped down the other booths and refilled napkin dispensers, trying to work my way toward him without being obvious about it. He finally stood up around 11:45 and asked where the bathroom was. I pointed down the hall. He walked back there and I heard the door close. 10 minutes passed, but he didn't show up. I glanced at the clock. It was almost midnight. Hector was finishing in the kitchen, and I wanted to lock up and get out. I walked down the hallway and knocked on the bathroom door, calling out to ask if everything was okay, but the stalls might have been empty. I knocked harder, but again, got no answer. I tried the handle. The door opened, and the bathroom was really empty. I looked around and noticed the window above the toilet was unlatched, pushed open wide enough for a thin person to squeeze through. The screen was gone. I backed out of the bathroom, visibly shaken. My heartbeats picked up. I went to tell Hector, but he'd already left through the kitchen entrance. I was alone. I locked the front door, turned off most of the lights, and went back to the office to grab my jacket. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from an unknown number. "You should lock the back door first. That's where they usually come in." My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen and read it again as another text came through. "You took 4 minutes and 23 seconds to close last Tuesday. Tonight you were faster." I ran to the back door. It was still unlocked, exactly how Hector had left it when he went to his car. I slammed the deadbolt and backed away from it. My phone buzzed again. Good. I looked out the kitchen window toward the parking lot. Headlights flicked on across the highway, but maybe 200 yards away, a dark sedan was parked on the shoulder with the engine running. The man was standing beside it with his notebook in his hand. He was looking directly at the diner. He raised his hand slowly, held up 3 fingers, and pointed at me. I dropped below the window and dialed 911. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. The dispatcher answered, and I tried to explain what was happening. She said officers were on the way, that I should stay inside and keep the doors locked. I stayed on the floor behind the counter, watching the front door. Every few seconds, I'd peek up at the window. The headlights were still there. 2 patrol cars pulled in some 15 minutes later. I watched the officers get out and look around. One of them crossed the highway toward where the sedan had been parked, but it was gone. I don't know when he left. I'd stopped looking after the 5th minute, too afraid he'd somehow gotten closer. The officers came inside and took my statement. I showed them the text. One of them asked if I noticed anyone suspicious before tonight. I said no. He asked if I was sure and insisted that I really think about it. I did. I remembered how last week, maybe the week before, I'd seen someone sitting in booth 7 late at night. I couldn't remember their face, but I remember thinking it was weird they'd only ordered water. The officer asked if I had security footage. I told him the cameras hadn't worked in months, that the owner kept saying he'd fix them but never did. They stayed until my mom came to pick me up, told me to call if anything else happened. I quit the next day, told my mom I wanted to focus on school. She didn't argue. 2 weeks after that, I was at the grocery store with friends when I saw him in the cereal aisle, wearing the same blue sweater, holding a box of cornflakes. When he saw me looking, he smiled and gave me a little wave. I left my cart and walked straight out. My friends asked what was wrong. I told them I'd seen someone I used to know. That night I got another text. "You're faster at the grocery store too. 11 minutes from entrance to exit. Last time was 19. Efficient as ever, Noah."